Hello and welcome back to Back Corner Comics. Today we're going to be talking about an anthology series that Dark Horse put out in the late 80s and I believe up until the mid 90s or a little into the late 90s. But yeah, this is Cheval Noir. So yeah, Cheval Noir is this great anthology series that kind of focused on a lot of European cartoonists. A lot of them were working in the 80s and 90s. There's some Mobius in here. Kaluta, who's not European, but he does a cover. Dave Stevens obviously does a cover here. Lots of cheesecake in this issue, and yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, Cheval Noir had this high prestige. There's lots of Jeff Darrow art in here, as you can tell. But Lone Sloan was published in here. Fever in Urbicand, which is my favorite that I've read in these books so far. Adele and the Beast, which is a Tardi kind of detective, like a treasure hunter type of story. Rourke is pretty good. Angel Fusion is a manga. But yeah, let's just get into it. Lone Sloan, if you're familiar with Philip Druyer's story, you know that it is a story about a wandering godlike figure within space and stuff. But I think nobody really talks about Cheval Noir, and I think it's a shame because there's a lot of good comics within here. Fever of Urbicand. I was not expecting to read such a well thought out story. Let's see what his name is. Francois Schutten does a few stories within the pages of Cheval Noir, and Fever of Urbicand is the first one. They are collected in these colorized versions that IDW put out a few years ago. Those are out of print and kind of hard to find for a decent price. But as you can tell, this story deals with a lot of architecture. So basically, the main character gets this like little cube like that looks exactly like this. That's exactly what it is. But he gets this little cube from an archaeologist friend, and it just starts growing and growing within the city. It phases through objects. It's not causing destruction, and it basically just turns into a fever, essentially, where the denizens of this city become obsessed with it. And it ends in a very interesting note. Another series published within Cheval Noir is Fred and Bob by Kalatau and Vatine. I don't know about these cartoonists. I don't think this is collected anywhere else. If you know about it being collected somewhere, please let me know. But it's basically about these, early 20s, late teens type of guys who are really horny and they're always just trying to get laid. The cartooning here is fantastic. I think the stories are like okay. I'm not like the biggest fan of that series, but here we have, the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. Fantagraphics is going to be publishing this story in a wonderful hardcover this year, and this is kind of that story serialized in Cheval Noir. Great stuff. I like this story a lot. I can't wait for that hardcover to kind of read it in one uninterrupted go. Let's just skip ahead because we will be looking at that at some point on the channel. Here is a manga, which I think this is okay. Angel Fusion, it was all right. The artwork is fantastic. Sometimes it's not about, the plot. Sometimes it's about the artwork. I don't really know the history of Cheval Noir too much. I just know that, I found a few in a 25-cent bin, and I enjoyed it. Rourke is okay. I hope it gets better later on. I've only read up until like issue 8 of Cheval Noir, so I don't know really where it goes. But these are very kind of like heady, surreal stories about a magician named Rourke, and yeah, so that's issue 1. All of them have these like great back illustrations by Jeff Darrow. As you can see, he does the cover for issue 2. We all know who that is. That is the famous Shaolin cowboy who first appeared in Bourbon Threat. And whoever the editor was for Cheval Noir really loved Jeff Darrow's work, as you can tell. And I just love that. You know, it's full of Jeff Darrow work. This story here is by John Bolton. You know, he typically does covers and painted comics, but here we have him doing line work. This was a fun read. Very wordy, as you can tell. Very short. Here you have that, like, that structure growing. And this is a really great story. I really liked it a lot. And, you know, he gets into a fight with his friend because they have, like, a difference in opinion. But this is like a strange world. You know, the Fever of Urbicand is this strange world where, you know, these men kind of control everything. These aristocrats control the fate of their city, and then also like a slum city. This was a fun Fred and Bob story. You get some really cool sci-fi stuff. There's an alien that shows up. You know, they help out aliens. They don't know they're really aliens the whole time, and, you know, because they're so dumb. You know. More Jeff Darrow in the back. Let's see if there's anything of note here. More Lone Sloan. I enjoyed Lone Sloan. This one's really good, The Auction. I enjoyed Lone Sloan. I thought it was different. You know, I want to read all of it. I know that there's a really great slipcase put out by Titan Comics. Fun little cartoon, you know, great little strip. God, look at that art there by Phil A. Drouillet. I'm just going to stop saying his name. I feel like I'm being disrespectful. Fun stuff. I don't know if this is Michael Kaluta. Who is this? I don't know. I don't know who that is. It'll tell us here. Todd Klein did the logo. And Dave Stevens, if you know who that is, you know he's a great colorist. Or not a colorist, a great artist. He did the cover of issue 1, and then you'll see issue 7 as well. Very cool right here. This artist, let me see if I can see their name. I forgot their name. I think they do like a Rick Geary. He did a collection. I forget the title of the book, but he did a collection. I did an overview of it. It was really sweet little story based on like an old novel from like over 100 years ago that this little kid wrote. Fever of Urbicand. The artwork here is phenomenal. I've seen the colorized edition and I wasn't exactly, you know, in love with it. Bit of a house of prostitution there that he stumbles on. He falls in love with the lady who runs it. It's really good stuff. Now there is if you know about Eddie Campbell, you know that he did a series called Bacchus, and it's like this whole Greek mythology thing. It's really neat. It's about Eurydice, the wine god. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. I believe it's Eurydice. But it's really cool, beautiful stuff by Eddie Campbell. But here he partners with somebody to do this storyline called The Eyeball Kid. And this was a fun read, you know. You can just imagine Eddie Campbell providing scripts in the form of, you know, some penciled pages here. So this story, or this particular chapter of the story, is like he's doing a stand-up routine, and he's talking about, you know, the people who wronged him, and then it goes into that. More Fred and Bob. Another chapter in the Adele Blancek story. This is a fun little like pulp adventure in Victorian era France. I believe it's France. I think this story might take place in England. It continues Tardi kind of worked on that character for a while, and I believe that was published in Pilote. Fun stuff. Corto Maltese advertisement right there. Aqua Blue looks really good. I'm going to look into those at some point. You get a vampire cover here. Just kind of want to do like a speed look through these. I don't want to take too much of your time. So, you know, for this story, Adele Blanc-Sec, there's like a pterodactyl that shows up. Again, I don't want to talk about it too much. Can't help it. But yeah, you know, Cheval Noir, I think, is an underrated anthology series that I wish more people talked about, and I wish there was more videos on it, so that's why I'm kind of making this video. You get these, like, look, this is Jeff Darrow, The Myth, and that is a young Jeff Darrow right there, guys. So these are old, you know. Just a little biography on Jeff Darrow. It's a tongue-in-cheek sort of parody-esque sort of thing. John Bolton and Steve Moore does this nice little vampire story. It was pretty good. Very well drawn. Very well written. Very well. English. So yeah, this is Cheval Noir. Fun series. Here's some covers. Some backs. Michael Kaluta. There's actually a really tame Mobius fold-out poster thing here. This issue is actually kind of expensive because a lot of them do not have this poster. It's a very tame Mobius, or what we know is Mobius, I would say. Let me see so the glare doesn't. Beautiful stuff. I believe it might be early Mobius stuff. Looks like it's from the 70s or something. I want to get that good. And obviously, I got this for slightly cheaper because of the ink there. Cheval Noir, if you find them in the bins, pick them up. Some of these are very expensive. This one is very expensive. So you will not be able to get all of them for cheap, but you can get some of them for a few dollars. I would say pick one up. You know, wouldn't hurt to have one of these great little anthology issues in your collection, especially if you collect single issues. They are very artist centric, and I think that's amazing. I don't know how they would do it, but I would love if Dark Horse kind of brought these back in some way. If they did a collection, I believe all the stuff in here is creator owned, so they would have to like hunt everyone down, but it would be neat if they did a best of Cheval Noir collection, like a nice little hardcover. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's Cheval Noir. Thank you for watching. This is Back Corner Comics. Please like, subscribe, and share wherever you can, where you know people love comics. I would like to start getting some discussions about some of these titles, and especially Cheval Noir. Like I said, I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.